Hi, and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship.
Welcome back to the podcast. I can't wait for today's episode because we have been talking about a very heavy subject before this one. We've spent 3 episodes on forgiveness, which is very important. And the reason that we started our podcast journey with forgiveness is because we feel like it's very important. And if there's big hurts, that's something that's got to be addressed. But I don't know about you, Heather, but it was starting to feel like a little bit of a downer there toward the end. And so we want a little pick-me-up today, right?
I agree. I mean, it is a topic that is so near and dear to our hearts and so important. And we just want people to get it and understand it. But yeah, it was time for something a little bit more maybe lighthearted.
I agree.
I don't know. Is this a lighthearted subject?
For some couples it might be. For some couples it might not be.
Yeah.
And we're talking about roles and responsibilities in your relationship, or think chores, that type of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about. So hopefully you are thinking, okay, great. Yeah, this is going to be light. It's going to be easy. We're going to figure this out. And maybe you're listening to this and say, oh boy, these are landmines waiting to happen. But I think either way, I think we're going to have a lot of good things to say today about this topic. And so I think you're going to enjoy this one. So
I think so. I think it's good just to kind of hear some new ideas of how you can tackle those roles and responsibilities within your family. So stay tuned in for this.
Yeah. And one quick thing before we jump in, I have to give Heather kudos is that if you listen to the last episode number 3, she talked about how we were close and snuggly during the podcast episode because we were having some technology issues.
We were.
And we have gotten it figured out, and I have to give her credit. She came up with the grand idea of, why don't you just unplug every single cord? And we've got about, it seems like 400 here, right?
I think there might be.
Yeah. And so I did that, and bam, here we are on 2 separate microphones. Being able to, look at each other. So
High five.
High five. All right.
I'm glad it's working.
Right.
I mean, I liked being close to you, but it's working.
Very true.
Okay.
All right. With that, let's get down to business here. So let's talk about roles and responsibilities. And I think the first thing that we want to talk about is how you grew up. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we grew up. But before we do that, kind of just to let you know, there are generally 2 different ways in which couples and families handle chores and responsibilities. The first one is called the traditional way, and that's typically what was done by most everyone, I would say, 40, 50 plus years ago, where, what was it, Heather? The female typically took care of everything inside the home.
Correct.
Male typically would work outside the home and take care of the yard. Right. Okay. And that's still done today by some people. And then what developed, I don't know, maybe in the 60s when females started to get back into the workforce, not get back in, they started to get to the workforce. It was called, did I say egalitarian?
Egalitarian.
The
teacher in me is going to teach him how to say it the right way.
So we're talking about gals. So egalitarian. We have a visitor.
Oh, we got to hit the pause button.
Butterscotch
just jumped up on the podcast
table. That's
table.
our cat. He's our little podcast mascot.
Gosh.
So
maybe we'll put his picture in
I think we've got him reined in
or
here.
Something. Okay.
Yeah. So what was I saying? The traditional approach was the first one. The more modern or egalitarian approach is more of an equal approach, where it might be, maybe you, Heather, might go out and mow the yard, which I don't think that'll happen, but, for 2 reasons.
We don't have a yard.
Right, and you don't like to mow, so.
For
those reasons, no. But if you were in an egalitarian situation, that might be the case, and maybe, again, what typically a female might have done, maybe wash the dishes or cook. Maybe the male does that in your relationship. So those are the 2 ways in which couples typically approach this. I wanted to talk a little bit about our childhoods just to give you an idea of what we went through. And as we're doing this, think about your own childhood. And so, Heather, what was the approach when you were growing up, would you say?
Yeah. So my family grew up in it was a very traditional family with the traditional approach. mom and the kids really took care of the inside, and then my brother and my dad took care of the outside of the house. With my dad working outside the home, and my mom, she was sorry, butterscotch is added again. Okay, sorry about that. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my childhood, and so she, and us girls, we did the cooking and the cleaning, and she sewed clothes for us, and she did the grocery shopping and all of those things. Just very traditional. And I did want to say, since we are going back to our childhood, many times the type of family that you grew up in is usually how you behave as an adult in your family. And it can change for other reasons, though, because maybe you don't like them to stay that way, or it could be that you were raised in a single family house, or single family house. Is that the right word? Did I say that right? Okay.
Single parent home.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. To where that one parent is doing everything. And so you're just, what is just a little bit different from someone that grew up in a home like I did with both parents and that sort of thing. So yeah, traditional approach.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in my childhood, I actually had two different ways in which I saw chores were done. And it's because I did grow up in a divorced situation where my mother, kind of was in and out of relationships, very short-lived. And so I would say for most of my childhood, it felt like I was with a single mom. And of course, she did most of everything. I had a couple of things that I did, but overall mostly saw her do everything. Now, we did typically live in apartments, so there was no outside yard work that I would see my mother doing, although I assume she probably would have had we lived in a home. And then with my father and stepmother, it was definitely more of a traditional approach with that, for sure. I remember my stepmom being inside most of the time doing the tasks that were in the home, and then my dad would be outside quite a bit. We had a pretty big piece of property, and so he really enjoyed being outside doing that. So I saw kind of two different ways to handle it. And as we talk about our childhoods, and as you think about your childhoods, we're going to pull a little bit more forward into how it works currently. And so think about, again, how it works currently for you. I don't know, Heather, if you want to talk a little bit about that, about how we work it.
Yeah, I think that Brian and I are probably more egalitarian. And I think that a big reason is because of him being a single father for a number of years. He was used to doing laundry and mopping the floors and scrubbing the toilets and cooking the food and doing the dishes and doing these things that were traditionally the woman's work. And so when we got married, it's not like he kicked back with a bowl of popcorn and turned on the football game and said, "Have at it, woman, get to work." That wasn't him. It wasn't his upbringing or his habits, I guess. And so he pitches in whenever is necessary. And I love that. He also, when we did have a house, took care of the yard. We would try to plant a garden and get out there and do a little bit of yard work together. And that's pretty much where my role outside ended because I just don't like yard work. But he was happy to take care of that. And even now, one of the coolest things is that I love to cook, and Brian is so happy to get in the kitchen and chop some onions with me, and we turn on the music and we start cooking together, whatever, like boiling the water, whatever it is that we need to do. He is happy to help me with that. And then but I do basically all of the cooking, and then he cleans up the mess. He does all of the dishes. And so yes, that means loading the dishwasher and unloading, but he does it.
And sometimes you'll do that too.
Yes, sometimes I will. If I see him unloading and I'm not doing anything, I will go and help him. So yeah, there's definitely some good teamwork that's just been very natural with the way that we, keep up the inside of our house.
Right.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
What you'll hear too, as we talk about this situation, these roles and responsibilities, we are very good, I think, with this one. There are certain topics that you're going to hear us when we talk about on the podcast, that you're going to hear some disagreements and some times that maybe didn't go so well. This one we've had a pretty good handle on. So hopefully, again, we can give you a lot of good creative maybe ideas and things to think about in order to make this better if it is a tough situation for you. And so with that, wanted to talk a little bit about communication and expectations. I think this is really where it all starts. And so
I think so.
Yeah. If you can both be able to have open and honest communication about setting the expectations for the household responsibilities, I think for the best. And, again, just normal communication type skills, be understanding and listen and summarize what you're hearing. All those good communication skills can come in handy when you're talking about this subject, especially if it can be a little bit of a landmine type situation. But I would say first and foremost, tell your spouse what you like and what you don't like. I mean, I think that's fair.
Can I tell you what I don't like?
Sure. Why not? Wow, she jumped in quick.
Yes, as a child, I was made to clean toilets. And to this day, I detest cleaning toilets. They are nasty, disgusting bowls in my house. Our house has 4 toilets. They're gross. Well, they're not really gross because they are clean, but they're just gross to have to clean. So I don't like to clean toilets, but drum roll, please.
Drum roll, please.
Here comes Brian.
Take care of them.
Yes.
It's not a passion of mine, but I will do it. And strangely, I didn't really think about this till we started talking, but I didn't ever really have to clean toilets as a child, and so maybe that's why I don't really mind it now. So I think, again, this is another situation where it just kind of worked out between us.
It did. It did.
So I would also say you might want to, well, this kind of leads into what you were just talking about. Talk to each other about what you did in childhood that you liked and what you didn't like, and then see if that kind of lines up and you can come to some conclusions and decisions about what might work best. Kind of like the toilet situation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
And you like to vacuum, and I don't mind pushing the mop around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is one that you may not have thought about that you should think about, and it's around, are there certain tasks that you like to do alone? Do you prefer doing some together? Would it help motivate you more if you were able to be on your own, or would you be more motivated to do something together? That could be another way to kind of help get the juices flowing when you're trying to figure out who's doing what. I don't know if we have an example of something that... I suppose probably cleaning a closet, depending on how big the closet is, might be something you would need to do by yourself. But
you mean so that we could turn the closet into a podcast studio?
Oh, yeah, right. That is correct.
You know what? We can make the bed ourselves, but man, is it so much easier when both of us are working together?
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think for
Teamwork.
us, making our bed is better as a team.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So, mowing, we live in a townhome, so we don't mow. But if we were mowing, that would probably be best done by one person, I would think.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty awkward if we both were pushing the lawnmower. So,
yeah.
But you get the idea. And you might want to talk about, and this might be a sore subject with Heather, I don't know. But, do the kids, do they need to get involved doing something? So
yeah, that's definitely something that you want to discuss with your spouse on, what kind of chores do you want to give your children to do? What should they be responsible for, if any? And come to some agreements on that. That's always a good thing too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as a child, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I really didn't have to do a whole lot. And I almost hate saying that. I feel guilty for saying that. I feel a little bit less than. But typically, my mother only asked me to make sure my room was clean, and I had to take the garbage out occasionally. And we lived on the 3rd floor in an apartment, so that's 3 flights of stairs. So you should feel sorry for me. Do you feel sorry for me, Heather?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, I think that's a no. So, okay.
He was a princess.
Right. I think so. I think we're learning a lot about ourselves doing this, aren't we?
I think so.
Now with that, so, again, we talked about communication, It's very important. I would say too, the next big topic we want to cover are you a household with one person that has a career outside the home, one's a stay-at-home parent? Do you both have careers, and how does all that work? And I guess, I don't know, Heather, if you want to talk a little bit about what might be important with that.
I think that it really comes down to communication again with this, about the things that you both expect to do or to have done, what's important to you. You've got to talk about these things. You can't just expect that the other person knows what you want. So just sharing those things with each other. If one of you is working outside of the home and the other's working inside the home, you're both really working. And but then if one of you is a stay-at-home and you are raising the children, what are the expectations there? They're different, just depending on what both of you do. If one of you travels a lot, what are the expectations there? It just comes down to communication. What the things are that are important. But I'm mixing up my words, man. What? Oh my gosh! What things are important to you?
Right.
And how, how you can make this work for the two of you. I apologize for my mixed up words. That's quite all right.
I think you are just fine. So one thing too that you've always talked to me about, real quick, that I'll talk about here is the what is it? Fair is not always equal.
Fair is not equal.
Right. So you might want to do the egalitarian approach, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to come up with a list of tasks and then they have to be divided exactly down the middle, or we have to talk about, okay, how much time do I spend, how much time do you spend, and we have to make it completely equal. So
no, that's not the goal here.
Right. The goal is to work together.
Yeah, it really is.
Now we're going to get into, I think, the creative portion of our episode here and give you some thoughts about some things that you can do that maybe you haven't thought about. And let's just say again that you're just struggling. Maybe you're not communicating very well about things. You're having a hard time resolving conflict over this subject, or maybe you're just having difficulty getting things done.
Maybe there's no time. Yeah,
right. What do you have some ideas on a few things people can do with that?
Well, if you don't have time and you have the finances, you could always hire an outside professional cleaning service to come in and take care of some of those things around the house. It is an added expense. So again, you want to communicate about that and see if you're even able to do that. Well, let's see. What else?
I think you have an interesting story about some technology, right?
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. So, yes. So when we built our townhome, the entire main level is all wood floors, and we have 2 cats that create these massive Texas-sized tumbleweeds that float across the floor.
One cat creates those?
No, we have 2 cats. I don't know what he's talking about. But
we have 2. One creates tumbleweeds.
Oh
okay,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I told Brian for months and months and months and months that we needed to get a robot vacuum cleaner, because that is an awful lot of sweeping. And if anyone knows me, you know that my body is always broken in some way, whether it's actually physically a broken bone or just other issues going on. And so constant sweeping is not ideal for me, because that just brings about a lot more pain. And so I continue to tell him, let's look into getting a robot vacuum cleaner. Let's look into getting one. I really, really need one. I cannot do this all the time. And he would just say, well, how much are they? Okay, we'll talk about it. I'm like, what? Are we going to talk about it when I'm older?
I was saying that because I was hoping she would forget, but she didn't.
Honesty. I love his honesty. And so this was finally resolved when one night I looked at him and I said, Brian, I've got some things in the Amazon cart. You should perhaps take a look at it, because I'm ready to hit the buy button. And when he looked at it, he saw that there was about $6,000 worth of robotic vacuum cleaners in the Amazon cart that made his eyes bug out. But it got his attention, and in no way was I ever going to spend that much money on any cleaning equipment.
Yeah.
But it worked because I won. Okay, speak, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if any of you have seen the Jetsons. Remember the robotic maid? I assumed when $6,000 was in the cart, I assumed, oh, we're getting a robotic maid.
Yeah,
But
we might get
anyway,
that next.
She got my attention.
I
and
did.
Obviously, just spent a couple $100 on the robot vacuum.
Yes, and it is very helpful because, pushing the broom around on this large main level is tough. But it's something that helps us, and it helps me physically and keeps the house clean. So, yay.
All right.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Very
I think
good.
that's something that if you need to think about doing some things like that to make the cleaning a little bit easier, then go for it, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we have a couple of other creative ideas for you. I'm going to call this one "Who's the Boss?" Do you remember that show back in the '80s? Did you ever watch that show?
I
Had
did.
Tony Danza.
Yes.
Oh, I forget the lead lady, but
I don't know.
yeah, he was the. I guess he was the maid. Anyway, so who's the boss? So what am I talking about there? I'm talking about if you have a situation, a task, or something maybe you're gonna put something together. Maybe you're gonna both put a shelf together or something like that. You might want to do what's called "Who's the Boss?" And what that is you make a decision before you do this thing together of who is going to be the leader and who is going to be the follower or employee. I don't know how you want to say it, but the leader gets to basically make the decisions on how this is going to work.
Who is the chef and who is the sous chef?
Ah, thank you. That
Done.
might be a better way to say it.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the sous chef is the one that is carrying out the responsibilities. And what
maybe not all of them, but
Right.
just kind of working alongside the chef, letting the chef sort of guide how this task is being accomplished.
Right. And
Chop
I would
my
say,
onions, please.
Yes. And I would say the main responsibility for the chef or the leader is just to be nice. Don't be, well, I'll just leave it there.
Well, be a good leader and communicate about your expectations
Right.
and talk with each other. Don't just, order around and say, put that screw in right there, like whatever.
Right.
Like,
or,
yeah,
and don't
we're not
try not
talking
to be
like that.
highly critical. You're not doing it right and this and that. I mean, of course, if you need to communicate that, do it,
Yeah.
but be nice about it. And then I would say for the sous chef, don't question everything. You made a promise that I'm not leading, this is not my idea. Now, of course, if you think somebody's going to die if you do something the way the leader wants you to do it or the chef wants you, then say something. But outside of that, just let it go. Oh, that might be trademarked. I probably shouldn't have done that. So those were the two things there with who's the boss. What do we have? We have another one that's kind of creative. Did you want to talk about that one?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay. You could always try role reversal because it's hard to really understand what the other person is doing if you haven't walked in their shoes. So maybe you want to get out there and go ahead and mow the lawn, and maybe the other person wants to go do some laundry and cook dinner or whatever. But try out what each other normally does so that you can kind of understand, like, oh, yeah, that might only take 20 minutes, but that really is hard work. If that makes sense. So, yeah, just reversing your roles a little bit and putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah.
I don't know. How many more ways can I say that?
Right. And if you
Next.
can do a 100% role reversal, that would be amazing. But we understand that that's sometimes pretty difficult.
Does that mean I have to clean toilets?
Yeah.
Because that is not happening.
Yeah. Right. I know that's off the table.
Off the table.
But I don't know if you just said this, but this helps create understanding just about what your spouse is doing. That's part of what this is all about.
Yeah. And it might help you just appreciate them a little bit more for
appreciation.
cleaning toilets.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Cleaning cat boxes.
Yeah.
That's another
right.
toilet.
Oh boy. And then we have one other little quick tip, I suppose, that relates. Do you want me to talk about this one?
Yes, because I'm lost.
So we are going to talk about, just ask for help, or if you're on the other end, ask how you can help. Just make sure you're always doing that. And again, try not to be a nag about it. But if you need some help, just ask. Again, be nice about it. But then if you're typically the person on the other side of the equation, try to proactively, go to your spouse and say, hey, do you need help with anything right now? What do we always say? How can I help?
How can I help?
Yeah.
Yes.
We saw that on a television show where the main character it was kind of a cool thing that he said, because he felt really genuine when he said it to people. He's like,
Yes.
how can I help you?
Yeah. And those couple of little words can just go such a long way in getting some things done and just keeping a good, restored communicative relationship. So, yeah. Yep.
And I think we are about ready to wrap up. We just have a few sort of things to remember here, but be flexible, be adaptable. I mean, maybe there's a situation where, Heather, maybe your sister who lives in Kentucky gets sick and she wants you to come for a week and be with her. Mm-hmm. Well, what's going to happen to the roles and responsibilities then?
Brian's cooking for himself. Hot Pockets?
That's right. Yes. Yes, that would probably be the case. And
peanuts?
I love peanuts. And so that would be a case where I might need to be proactive and say, okay, I know you take care of this, that, and this. What's important? What's urgent? What do I need to make sure I take care of every day? Is there anything that can be let go? So just have conversations about that.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah. Or, maybe I get sick, or maybe you get sick, and
right.
one of us has to jump in a little bit more on other things. Right. Again, just be flexible and be adaptable. I think one other thing.
Yeah. Time management and scheduling. Sometimes it can just be so overwhelming to think about everything that has to be done around the house. And oftentimes the only time anything gets done is on the weekends, and then the weekends are filled with so many other engagements that are happening. So when do things get done? And, a long time ago, Brian and I created a schedule so that kind of planning out like what we were going to do every night of the week, so that it was just really probably 20 minutes of a chore each night. And so we listed some things out and we said, okay, on Monday nights, we're going to do the laundry, and on Tuesday nights we're going to sweep the floor, and on Wednesday, or I'll sweep and then he'll vacuum, and on Wednesday night we'll do, I don't know, my mind is drawing a blank because I've been talking too much, but I think you catch my drift there, that we put some things on a schedule, on a calendar, to kind of help us tackle these needed chores a little bit at a time. It's the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we did. And that helped. That really helped to get some things done and to create some habits, really. So.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. And I think this might be a good place for us to start to wrap. And so not rap as in musically rap, but wrap it up. So I hope that you have gotten a lot out of this. I hope that we've given you some thoughts and some ideas about what it is to work together on the roles and responsibilities and your chores and your tasks. And hopefully we've given you some creative ways in which to do that if you're struggling at all with that. And so I think with that, we want to point you to our Love How Deep newsletter, so you can get a lot more tips and strategies and resources to help strengthen your marriage. And we do it all by focusing on godly wisdom. And we would be very appreciative if you would go out to the episode link, and it's going to be at lovehowdeep.com/4, because we're on episode 4. And we'll have a link to the newsletter, and you can sign up. And we send it out typically weekly, and occasionally we like to send out some extra things for you. So I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll be able to stay up to date on the blog articles and our podcast and all kinds of different things that we're doing. So I think with that, do you have anything else to say, Heather?
Go and spend some fun quality time together, because doing chores is not necessarily fun, but hopefully you're going to listen to this maybe together and get some things kind of divided and conquered. But don't forget, it's not always about, your marriage should not always be about doing this stuff together. So be sure you spend some good quality time with each other and just nurture your marriage, your relationship. Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with that. That is an awesome way to wrap up this episode. And so we will go ahead and sign off. And as I always say, just remember that marriage is not something you have, it's something you do every day. Take care until next time.